You have probably heard the old line about the richest man in the graveyard. It always gets a laugh, and then a quiet moment, because underneath it is a real fear that most careful people carry and rarely say out loud. Not the fear of running out of money, the other one. The fear that you will do everything right, save and save and save, and one day look up to find you saved a whole life you never quite got around to living. Tonight I want to talk about that gently because there is still time, and that is the best news there is. So let me start where the worry starts, and let me be clear about one thing first. Being careful with money was not a mistake. If you were the kind of person who saved, who went without, who built something steady, that discipline is a gift, and it is the reason you have choices now that a lot of people do not. So nothing I say tonight is a criticism of the saver in you. It is more like a gentle tap on the shoulder to point at something on the other side of all that care. Something that is easy to miss precisely because you were so focused on doing the responsible thing. And here is the something. For your whole working life, there was one fear that ran the show. The fear of not having enough. It is a good fear in its way. It got you to save. But it is so loud and so constant that it drowns out its quieter twin, the fear almost nobody plans for. And that quiet fear is this: that you will not run out of money, that you will run out of time with the money still sitting there. I know that sounds backwards, so let me show you it is real. Researchers who study how people actually spend in retirement found something striking. A large share of retirees, by the time they reach their mid-80s, have barely touched their savings at all. Roughly 1 in 3 still has essentially everything they started with, or more. Think about that. We spend 30 years terrified of running the well dry, and for a great many careful people, the well was never the problem. The problem was that they kept guarding the water long after they were thirsty and never quite let themselves drink. And when you ask people why, the answers are all so reasonable, which is exactly what makes them so hard to see past. Some say they are keeping it for an emergency that might come, and of course one might, and a cushion is wise. Some say they want to leave as much as they can to their children, which is a beautiful instinct, and some say, quite honestly, that they just feel better when the balance stays high, that watching the number is its own kind of comfort. None of those are foolish. But notice what they have in common. Every one of them is a reason to keep the jar sealed for a little longer, and a little longer has a way of becoming forever. The reasons are real, but so is the clock, and the clock does not accept reasons. Now, why does that happen? Part of it is the habit, the saving reflex worn so deep it feels like who you are, and we have talked before about how hard that is to set down. But there is something else underneath it tonight, something worth seeing clearly, and it is this. Money is not really paper or a number on a screen. Money is stored life. Every dollar you have was a piece of your time, your effort, your energy, traded away and saved up. When you were younger, that trade made sense. You gave hours now to buy security later. But here's the part we forget. The whole point of storing life energy is to spend it back out again, on living. A jar of it, left sealed forever, is not a victory. It is a life's worth of hours that never got turned back into a life. Writers who think about this, like the ones behind a book called Die with Zero, put it in a way that stuck with me. If you save $1 and never use it for anything that matters to you, you did not really save that dollar. You lost the piece of your life it was made of. Now, I am not here to tell you to spend down to nothing or to hand you some formula. That is not my place, and it is not the point. The point is much simpler and much kinder. It is just to notice that the money was always meant to become something, and to ask, gently, whether the day you were saving it for might quietly have already arrived. Because the thing we do not let ourselves look at is that the window is not open forever. When we picture spending it, enjoying it, we always picture doing it later, some vague good later when the time is right. But later is not a fixed place that waits for us. The truth, and I say this softly, is that the years where you have the health to travel, the energy to say yes, the people you love still around the table to share it with, those years are a window, and it is narrower than we like to admit. There is a season for the trip, for the gift, for the good bottle and the long visit, and that season does not stay open just because your bank account is patient. Let me tell you about someone, because I think it lands better as a person than a point. I will call him Walter. Walter was careful his whole life, the way a lot of good men of his generation were. And for 40 years he talked about one trip. He and his wife were going to take it when things settled down, when the timing was right, when he felt they could really afford to relax. They could have afforded it for the last 20 of those years, easily. But the timing was never quite right, because the saber in him could always find one more reason to wait. And then his wife got sick. And then the window that had been open the whole time quietly closed, and the trip never happened. When I knew Walter, he was not a poor man. He was a rich man by every number. But he would have traded a good part of that number, gladly, for one more chance at the thing the number was supposed to buy. And he could not, because the one thing money cannot do is buy back a season that has passed. I do not tell you that to make you sad. I tell you it because Walter's window is not closed for you, not tonight. You are here, and there is still time, and that changes everything. So here is the whole gentle move, and it is not dramatic, and it does not require you to become a different person. It is just to let a little of the water out of the jar, on purpose, while you are still thirsty, to take $1 that was stored life and turn it back into life. The trip you keep saying you will take someday, put a date on it. The help you are going to lead your kids in a will, give some of it now, while you are here to see their faces when you do. The small luxury you always talk yourself out of, let yourself have it once, and notice that the sky does not fall. And I want to say a word about giving it while you are here, because I think it is the most beautiful version of this. So many careful people plan to be generous after they are gone, in a will, in a number their children read on a hard day, and that is kind. But there is a quiet magic in giving some of it now instead, in helping while you can watch it land, in being in the room for the relief or the joy or the tears. You do not have to choose between providing for them and being present for it. You get to see the good your life energy does with your own eyes while your own heart is still beating. That is not spending money. That is spending it wisely on the one return no statement will ever show you. You do not have to spend it all. You do not have to be reckless. You only have to loosen the grip enough to remember what the grip was ever for. Because the goal was never to win some quiet contest for who dies with the biggest number. Nobody stands at a graveside and admires the balance. The goal was to take the life energy you so carefully stored and turn some of it back into a life, warm and specific, and yours, while your hands are still open and the people you love are still in the room. So if you have been the careful one, the responsible one, the one who always saved for a someday that keeps not arriving, I want to leave you with just this. Your carefulness already did its job. It gave you the one thing most people never get, which is the freedom to choose. And now you are allowed to choose the life, and not just the number. Money is a tool. And a tool that stays in the drawer, no matter how fine it is only weight. Now I would like to hear from you, because I suspect a lot of you have a jar you have been guarding, and a someday you keep moving. Tell me in the comments about the thing you keep saving for and never doing. What is the trip, or the gift, or the small joy you keep putting off? And what would it take to move it from someday to a date on the calendar? Naming it here out loud is often the first small drink from the jar. Take care of the quiet things, and the quiet things will take care of you.